Hello everybody, welcome to Comic Book Radio. Man, it's been a long weekend. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. For me anyway, a long weekend. Away from you guys. This is episode 209. It's a special edition open lines show. We didn't have an open lines show on Friday. I was doing the Alterna closeout launch over there. So we didn't have our usual Friday get-together. And then Sunday, I was going to do a draw stream. Time wasn't my friend. Too many last-minute things popping up. I said, I'm just going to take care of it now. I was going to take care of it and push it off and just take care of it Monday. But I was like, I need more than what Monday can provide. So, skip doing the draw stream on Sunday to catch up on a lot of different work obligations. Everything's okay. It's not like a personal emergency thing. Just sometimes you gotta get work done. It's gotta get done now. Don't put off for tomorrow what you could do today. Right? I always try to do that. I don't like procrastination. So here I am. That's what I mean. It's kind of been long. Sunday, Monday, and now here we are Tuesday. We have a good show for you guys tonight. I think we're gonna have a really good conversation about this. People have been asking for me to talk about this for a while. Comic book movies and shows. Now I want to try to focus on our favorites. I know it's going to be tough because I'm sure there's a lot of ones to bring up that we don't much care for. But there's a ton of them that are great. And it's okay if we do talk about some of the ones we don't really care for. I just don't want the conversation to be dominated by that. I want us to focus on the positives. To add to the episode 2 tonight, the other day I was going through some stuff and found this Wizard issue from about 30 years ago, almost exactly 30 years ago. This came out August 2003. We'll take a look at this tonight. Back in 2003, what was declared the 50 best comic movies ever? Now, to be perfectly honest, they don't start calling anything good until around the 30 mark. I think they're more just listing off 50 comic movies and then going, all right, it's time to talk about the good ones. But we'll take a look at this. There's some interesting stuff in there that, of course, is comic book movie related. There's nothing from the past 31 years in there. So it'll kind of be interesting to see a time capsule of sorts. And then also there's a few pages in there that are interesting. Like what were their top 10 comics at the time. It made me regret selling. I had like maybe half of the Wizards that ever came out. Made me regret selling those years ago. I only got maybe 4 issues now. And this is one of them. So, hey, we're lucky with that. But it would have been kind of cool to look through, It's a bit of a time capsule. Anyway. So, yeah, it's an open line show. If you guys want to join tonight, the link is pinned to the top of the chat. I'm going to put it in here for you guys, too. If you want to come on in and have this discussion with me live on air. Again, let's try to focus and center it more towards our favorites. I don't mind having a discussion on some of the ones you don't like and things like that, but I want to keep it more towards a positive note. All right, before I get started, let me say hello to those of you in the chat. We got Dr. Mask here. Says, "Hail Pete, how many things am I going to want to rewatch after this show?" Probably quite a few. Yeah, I would say so. I'm sure there's going to be stuff we talk about, even, if you guys come on here or if you stay in the chat and talk about it, which I hope you do. I'm sure there's going to be things that I feel like, wow, I missed out on that. I got to check that out. Or maybe I got to look at it again, with some fresh eyes. Speaking of comic book related shows, tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern, Susan Eisenberg, the voice of Wonder Woman from the Justice League animated show and the Justice League Unlimited show, is going to be on here. So tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern, we finally worked a day out. She was supposed to be on here about a month or so ago, and there was a confusion on time, and it just didn't work out at that point to reschedule up until now. So she'll be on tomorrow at 1 Eastern. I hope you guys will be here for that. She's a lovely lady, and I'm sure we'll have a great conversation. Side note, she had a cameo in the film that was based on my comic, The Chair, which also was Roddy Piper's last feature film before he unfortunately passed away. Let's see, we got Jefferson Roswell here. What's up, Jefferson? Hope you're doing well. Dr. Mass says, gotta do those things maybe you don't like to do, but have to get them done. Yeah, you know how it is, right? If there's a hierarchy of things that need to get done, and certain things take precedent from time to time. Sometimes I can push them back a little bit and go, I could do all that tomorrow. And then other times I look at it and I'm like, well, tomorrow I'm already doing a ton of things. I don't have the time to spare. And that's what happened this weekend. Metatron says, I bet the list still holds up. Probably does. I took a quick look at it. I didn't do an in-depth thing. It's pretty good, pretty solid, I don't know if it holds up in terms of once you get to like the top 10, maybe some things would shuffle around, maybe some things would get out of that spot. I don't really, I agree with most of what's in that top 10 on my personal top 10 anyway, but there were some things in there that I think people will love for a very long time. Buddha Bear, what's up, Buddha Bear? Hope you're doing good. Thank you for joining us tonight. Creative Faye is here. Says, hi, it was a terrible movie adaptation, but got me into the character. Man-Thing from 2005. The only way I think I ever saw that was like the cover of it, and it was at like a Blockbuster video or something. I never watched it. Was it bad? I could never get into the Man-Thing character. I was always more of a Swamp Thing guy. I dig the look of the character, but just could never get into it. I know I'm a cryptid and monster guy. You figure that I would. But I was always more of a Swamp Thing guy, even though I was always more of a Marvel reader. Paradoxes. Buddha Bear, Val Kilmer says Val Kilmer was the best Bruce Wayne, not Batman, but the best Bruce, and could have made him a good Batman. I will agree to disagree, Buddha Bear. He was fine for Batman Forever. He was fine. Batman Forever had a lot of problems, the biggest of which, honestly, had nothing to do with Val Kilmer. He's probably the best thing about that. Jim Carrey was okay as Riddler, I get it. But Two-Face bugged the hell out of me. And the whole Robin plotline. Dude looks like he's 25 years old. Why is Bruce Wayne adopting this fella? Just give him, write him a check and send him on his merry way. I don't really think he needs help like he would have, when he was a kid. He'd need somebody to look out for him because he's got nobody else. He's going to be a ward of the state. But at that point, it's like, it's one thing if... I don't know. And I know they were kind of setting up like the Tim Drake plot for Dick Grayson. Sort of, kind of, in a way. But, well, especially when it came to Two-Face. But Two-Face, I could have overlooked the Robin stuff. I could have overlooked that, but the Two-Face stuff, it was like Tommy Lee Jones for the first time in his whole career decided to act differently. If he had acted like Tommy Lee Jones always acts, very sullen and serious, and could really play ominous very well if you've seen him in some of those kinds of roles. I thought the Two-Face character would have been great. It would have really played off of the Riddler that much better. But it was like both of them were trying to out-Joker each other. So Val Kilmer's the least of my qualms with that movie. Your comment, I feel, is more akin to like how I feel about Michael Keaton. I think he was a pretty good Bruce Wayne. His Batman was great for the suit and the mystique. But you look at Michael Keaton and go, that's physically not Batman. So. But I still love him. I still love those movies. And when I was a kid, I loved Batman Forever. Batman and Robin I could not get into. That was tough. I had to really go in a different area of my mind to get into Batman and Robin. Even though I think I was like 12 or something when Batman and Robin came out. And at that point I was far too discerning. It took a lot to just come around to it eventually and just kind of enjoy it for the massive train wreck that it is. Eric says the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie was awesome. As far as comic book movies go, that was probably the first I saw in the theaters. I wish I saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the theaters. It was that, and I don't even remember the movie, but it was a birthday party movie for some other kid's birthday. And everyone else wanted to see this other movie instead of Ninja Turtles. And I was just devastated because I loved the Turtles when I was a kid. Still do. But that's a great one. That first movie is great. I feel it still holds up. I've probably seen it like 100 times. The third... Well, okay, so the second Ninja Turtles movie, I don't really mind. I wish Donatello wasn't such an existential sad sack. In the first one, he's wonderfully sarcastic and witty, and he's got a great thing going with Michelangelo, Casey Jones, and him and Michelangelo are great. And you still get that Donatello has got some smarts to him. But the second one, he's just having like a turtle crisis over who and what and why am I a turtle? Why is it the way that it is? It's just like, what? What are you talking about? That I thought that was completely unnecessary. That didn't need to happen. And I didn't like the voice change either. I thought Corey Feldman's voice was better than whoever they had for the second one. The third one, I had hated for a long time. I couldn't get past a lot of the head sculpt and the big teeth and things like that. I forced myself to just have it on months ago, maybe like 5 or 6 months ago. Just leave it on. Just let it be. It wasn't as bad as I remember. It's still bad. Still my least favorite of the three. But not so bad. Not so bad. Could have been better. Would have loved to see Casey Jones be in the second one. Would have loved to see the same actress for April O'Neil from the first one be in all three as well. I thought that was kind of a downgrade, the actress that they got for 2 and 3. But that first one, I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Reverend Saber, what's up? Hope you're doing good. Rachel says no love for Toxic Avenger. Who's giving no love for Toxic Avenger? I love Toxie. Remember the cartoon? Strange choice for a cartoon given the movie. Creative Fate. It was on the Sci-Fi Channel. The creature design was good. That was a Man-Thing movie, I'm guessing. Now I don't like the second-person narration in the books. see. Dale says, I like the second Ghost Rider movie, Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. Sure, it was a bad movie, but it was very entertaining. That's one that I gotta give a second shot to. Because the first one was had some cool parts, but overall I thought was kind of a disappointment. The second one looked a lot cooler. Didn't I have Idris Elba's in that, right? The second one. The second one looked a lot cooler, but I never got around to watching it. Maybe I'll give it a shot, Dale. Booter Bear says, I agree with those. Well, thank you, Booter Bear. Creative Face says, I like Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. But I like Tommy Lee Jones. Well, I don't mind Tommy Lee Jones. That's exactly why I'm disappointed in his Two-Face. I think he's a great pick for Two-Face. Oh my lord, great pick for Two-Face. I remember being a kid, being excited about him being Two-Face. And then the movie came out. And now I didn't mind it too much as a kid. I remember being a kid, and the biggest thing, hands down, that I hated about Batman Forever was the Batman theme. It was different. It wasn't the da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na, the Danny Elfman. I don't even know the name of the guy that came up with the new theme for Batman Forever that was then used in Batman and Robin. And I get it, now it's Joel Schumacher's thing, and they want to go on a different... But I didn't think they needed to do that. I didn't think... that disappointed me greatly. I had high expectations when I was a kid. Right off the bat, I was like, that's... What? There was a variation, of course, in Batman Returns to the first Batman. The theme was still there, but it was a little variation to it. So I was kind of expecting the same sort of thing. Even though, it was going to be a different person playing Batman. But that really disappointed me as a kid. Buddha Bear says, I just felt like Val really played off the playboy introvert. Yeah, I could see that. The only thing I have a problem with Val Kilmer as Batman is he seemed too publicly too brooding. I think you would know that this guy might be Batman. That was the only thing. And I mean, that kind of happens with a lot of different live action actors that played Batman. I thought in Batman Begins, Christian Bale did it pretty good, where publicly he kind of seemed sort of like he really wasn't around, and he was kind of an airhead, and he really lived up like that playboy kind of self-interested person. You kind of need to throw people off the scent a little bit. You don't got to be an obnoxious a-hole or something, but the brooding, you gotta pump the brakes on the brooding. Dr. Mask says Tommy Lee would have been fine, but I think being in the movie Jim Carrey pushed him over the top too. Yeah, I mean, and I don't know the behind the scenes, so maybe it was the direction he was given. But he could have been great as Two-Face. I think he's a great choice. But him acting outlandish was too much. All right, so let's see. I got somebody waiting in the green room here, so I'm going to bring him on. Let's say hello to Denali. What's up? Hey, Denali, you're there?
Yep, here.
Oh, hey. How's it going? What's on your mind tonight?
Oh, I saw you were talking comic book, and the composer was Elliot Goldenthal from Batman Forever.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So.
Do you know what else that he's done? I don't know. Not familiar.
Goldenthal?
Yeah.
I think he did Frida, if anybody watched that. And Heat.
Okay.
With Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. He composed that movie as well. For Val Kilmer, I recall the interviews with Joel Schumacher. they got Val Kilmer because of his portrayal of Doc Holliday in Tombstone. They wanted him to recreate that as Bruce Wayne, and then for whatever reason, Val Kilmer couldn't produce that, and came out showing that version of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, is it just me, or when he was Bruce Wayne, does he has like he's got like kind of a lisp, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah, he like I remember one part he's like, "Let's go to the circus," and I was like, "Did you just say the circus?" He's like, "Tell me, doctor, have you ever been to the circus?"
yeah.
I was like, "What did he just say?"
He's like, yeah, I
But yeah,
remember.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember the first one when he's with Jim Carrey, and in the open scenes, like he's talking about this could be used for dangerous power, Enigma. I'm shutting it down. You know, and I think that was the Doc Holliday that they were trying to introduce, and they were like, nope, nope, nope. It's not gonna work for that.
Yeah, yeah.
I know Tommy Lee Jones did it because his kid said, "Oh, you gotta do it, Dad. You gotta be Two Face. He's awesome." And then they just
Oh
went over.
yeah.
They went over the top, and just Joel was surprised that after Batman Forever, they gave him um, Batman and Robin because he thought that the last one, Forever was like that's it, no more Batman. And then the
Oh,
only
like they were just gonna do a trilogy.
yeah, and then Batman Forever, they basically told him, and he says in interviews afterwards, like, no, the only marching orders that I got for Batman and Robin is make lots and lots of toys. That's why you had the Mr. Freeze van escape and pop off like that. That's why you had the Batmobile.
So it was a studio directed film then, essentially.
Exactly. And they just and they went all ham on that.
And I like Joel Schumacher with a bunch of his other films. I was surprised, and I don't know if this was ever even on the table, but I thought it would have been great if Jason Patrick would have been considered, just where he worked with him on Lost Boys.
Yeah.
I thought he could have been a pretty decent Batman.
I think he would have been better as Two-Face against Jim Carrey instead of Tommy Lee Jones.
You think Jason Patrick over Tommy Lee Jones?
Yeah, because Tommy Lee Jones doesn't have a sense of humor.
Well, that's why I thought he would be great for Two-Face.
No.
Two-Face, because then you could have had the zany Riddler.
Yeah.
You could have had the straight man, and the foil.
Right.
And instead, they're out foiling each other the whole time.
Exactly. It was a competition. That wasn't the case. One had to be the straight man to the other one's zaniness.
Yeah, which is why I wish Tommy Lee Jones just stuck to the script of everything else he's ever done.
Right. Which you kind of see those moments of flashes when he's not being zany, he's actually acting straight. He's phenomenal on that.
Yeah.
But he couldn't deal with the buffoonery, in his own words, of Jim Carrey. And I think that egged him on to act more over the top because he didn't see any value onto it. But you can see the difference when he's playing another superhero comic book movie, Men in Black, against Will Smith.
Oh, yeah.
So
totally.
If he had made that portrayal as K, as of he did Two-Face, I think his portrayal would have been better received at that time.
Yeah. And I mean, Jim Carrey, they must have just forced him to watch Frank Gorshin 24/7 and be like, that's the Riddler. That's the Riddler.
No. That's basically, they didn't force him to do anything. That's him on his own.
Because he's straight up conjuring Frank Gorshin Riddler at that point.
Oh, he did that. I remember, what was that magazine? It was a very popular magazine back in the 90s where he was doing interviews, and he said, no, he cited Gorshin's Riddler as his inspiration. And then he added his own Jim Carrey variation to it, which is the whole costume, the one piece question mark towards the end. That was in reference to that Gorshin. But
yeah.
No, but you also have to remember Jim Carrey was coming high off of Ventura.
And he was huge.
and also the mask,
Yeah.
which propelled him. Like everybody was expecting the mask as the Riddler, basically, and that was his marching order: be as crazy as you want to be, kind of deal. Instead of no, he's so the Riddler's so liberal. Don't you don't have to be zany, but of course, with high personalities, the director can only tames the wildness.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, especially he was a huge star.
Yeah,
he's probably the biggest one at the time that
yeah,
was in that movie.
he got paid more than Val Kilmer and Tommy Lee Jones. He was the highest paid actor in that movie.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the other reasons why Tommy Lee Jones had such a hard time in the set. He was this guy acting like a crazy guy, and he's getting paid more than me, who's been in this industry for like 20, 30 years.
Well, I mean, I don't want to put words in Tommy Lee Jones's mouth. I think he seems like a pro. I don't think he would get
Oh
that petty about it, but
no, he wouldn't. But his action, you know, his actions read about it. I think there was a couple stories that Jim Carrey said that there was times when he punched me, that he actually hit me a couple times dealing with it. But no, I think the only time that I saw Tommy Lee Jones let loose was Under Siege with what's his name?
that was with Steven Seagal, right?
Yeah, Steven Seagal. In the
Yeah.
first one, the first Under Siege movie, where he's acting, wild. It's like, I'm crazy here going on.
Yeah, yeah.
So, now, the other one that kind of brings to mind, and then, yeah, technically The Mask is a superhero film because it was a comic book.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's based on a comic. Yeah.
And it's basically, and it's completely different if you read the Mask comic, where Stanley's a homicidal maniac. Yes.
Yeah, they toned that down a bit.
Yeah.
From the comic.
Quite a bit. There was also, let me see, I think props to Blade. Blade was one of the more popular ones.
What's your favorite one, or at least one of your favorites?
One of my favorite ones?
Yeah.
It would have to be Superman. Christopher Reeve Superman.
Okay, that's a great one.
Yeah. You can't beat that's Superman for me, and it's been Superman. Nobody has been able to top Christopher Reeve's portrayal of both Clark Kent. He did an amazing Clark Kent. You could tell by his mannerism, by his behavior, that this guy isn't Superman. And then when he becomes Superman, that guy embodies the essence of Superman, and he's the Blue Scout. He's the Blue Boy, Superman kind of deal. And the first two movies was done great with Donner as director, and the writer who wrote Godfather, Mario
Puzo, yeah.
Yeah, Mario Puzo. And they talked about it. These guys knew Superman in and out. And I'm kind of sad to say that today's writers who are entrusted with Superman no longer remember what makes Superman Superman.
Yeah, well, it seems like a lot of what's going on today, especially, not like it didn't happen before.
Yeah.
But a lot of what's going on today really feels like we want to bring our own twist, right, our own vision to the characters, as opposed to we want to make sure we are being faithful to what's been there and really identify what's the core, what are the main most important elements. Let's be a little more concerned with that. Right. And they did embellish a couple things back then, but you could overlook some of it because they really got the core and the foundational aspects of a lot of the characters, and especially the stories and the interactions. But it feels like there's too much of, I want to put my own stamp on this character. And I get it, but at the same time, it's like I don't think that when you're adapting something on this level that's really the place for that.
Right. Because I think what makes Super Batman easier is because the clear motive is there. Kid lost his parents to needless violence, so he grows up to fight crime. He happens to just be a billionaire, so he doesn't have to worry about where he's getting all his tech gadgets and stuff. But um, it's a clear motivation. You can strip down uh, Batman. You can get rid of his riches, and his core still remains. But for Superman, they don't understand Clark Kent, and they don't
Yeah, and
understand
they don't understand that like he's the way he is. He's so good because of who raised him.
exactly, and they don't understand the profound effect of him losing his father at a young age, because one of his biggest regrets was, I had the power, but I still couldn't save my father from dying, kind of
Well, that
thing.
was always something too that kind of, I saw the Superman movie uh, pretty young,
Right,
but then when I started really getting more into the comics, and I was like, wait, his dad's alive? I'm like, why do they keep killing off his dad?
right. Well, it depends on which version of Superman, because they have Martha dying, or they have Jonathan dying, and they've switched back and forth. Like Dean King's Superman, both his parents are alive. Christopher Reeve went with John Burns' edition, where Jonathan Kent dies. George Reeves, um, both of his parents' character for that era dies, kind of deal. But the same thing kind of manifests that it's because he was raised and then he didn't have the power to save his parents. That kind of informs him that have to do better, because this is what my parents' legacy would be. And the only way I can show my parents' legacy is if I help people needlessly, kind of thing. And it's kind of hard in this current mindset that we're in, with our societal mindset, to be selfless, kind of thing. We can understand vengeance, but we're having a hard time facing selflessness, which is why Lex Luthor can never understand Superman. He's always oppositional to Superman, because he says, how can a man do something that's out of his self-interest?
Yeah, so he was trying to find his selfish motive.
Yeah,
I mean, Lex Luthor is a villain completely based off of projection, just
exactly.
psychologically,
Exactly.
you know. Because whatever thoughts are going on in Lex Luthor's head, where he's purely selfishly driven, that's how he sees the rest of the world. And he's like, there's no way everyone else isn't like me. Everyone else has to be somewhat like me and selfish to the core, and that's why people do things that they do. And then, not that he's entirely wrong, but he's definitely jaded in that aspect and is projecting his
His
faults onto everyone else.
right.
But yeah, when you see
And,
that with
and
Superman, yeah, it drives him nuts.
exactly. It's like Superman breaks his narrative because he's seen an example of someone who's against his views, of his worldviews, and he can't accept that. Because if he accepts Superman, then he has to accept all the mistakes he's made, all
Yeah.
his assumption, all his reality. So Superman is a threat to his reality.
Now, Denali, before I let you go, because I got to catch up with people in the chat as well, and
Absolutely.
if anybody else wants to hop on board, there's the link. You guys can join tonight and talk about comic book movies and shows. I got to ask you, give me a character or a storyline
Mhm.
that, in an ideal world, you'd like to see adapted to live action or animation.
Planet Hulk,
Okay.
because it's the Hulk, but
They
coded.
did put that to animation though. Did you not?
Yeah,
Did you not
yeah.
like that?
No, it wasn't well done. It was animation with a budget, you can tell. Um, But I think live action wise, I think that would be a very strong possibility, and it could reinvent the superhero genre because it kind of reminds me. Oh, you know what? Let me take that back. John Carter, to redo John Carter of Mars
Yeah.
and actually do it, give it justice, because the one that Disney introduced back in the 2018, I think 2016, they totally dropped the ball on that adaptations of that.
I thought the MCU really ruined that by putting Hulk in Ragnarok
Yes,
and completely obliterating
that storyline. Yeah,
that whole storyline. That could have been such a strong storyline.
that,
Even
it
if
would
you
have.
obviously take some freedoms with it and to incorporate other characters and whatnot, like, oh, they found where Hulk is because his like gamma radiation signature or whatever, but
They could have made a
man,
TV show out of it. They could have made a trilogy out of it. Oh, World War Hulk, Planet Hulk 1, 2, and 3. They could
yeah.
have made a franchise out of that. And
Well, they could have set up Hulk to then be the next big bad, essentially,
exactly,
and dealing with the
exactly,
aftermath of whatever.
exactly.
But they
But
kind of, yeah.
drop the
Yeah,
ball.
Planet Hulk's a good one.
Yeah.
All right,
So
man. Well, thank you so much for having a conversation with me tonight. Appreciate it.
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
No problem.
All right.
All right, man. Have a great night.
Yep. Peace out.
Take it easy. All right. Yeah. Anything that you guys are out there, especially when it comes to these films and these shows and these characters and all that, in an ideal situation, something that maybe hasn't been adapted before or something that maybe has and you feel like they missed the mark, what would you guys pick? Now, while you guys think about that, I'm going to take a look here at the chat and see if I missed anything in particular. Hey, David, how's it going? I missed you. You didn't miss me. I mean, you might have missed me, and thank you if you did. But I had work and whatnot to catch up on. Last minute stuff. I had to get all of my attention because Monday was already full. So, broke my heart in a small way to not be able to do it. I love doing these draw streams. They're so much fun. But it is what it is. Sometimes you got to make the tough choice. But thank you, man. I'm glad you're here tonight. So before I dive into what you guys are thinking about in terms of wanting to adapt something to live action or animation, a show, a film, whatever it may be, a character that hasn't been adapted yet. It doesn't have to be Marvel or DC. It could be whatever. If you're into anything else, let me know. It could be a manga even. Anime, whatever. Even though anime would be a show. But it could be anything like that. You feel like maybe they missed the mark if they already did adapt it. Let me know. I'm very curious to see what you guys think. But while you guys think about that, I'm going to show you guys some stuff from that Wizard magazine, from this one. And if anyone wants to check this out and get their hands on it, it's Wizard number 143. 143. So I took some pictures of this because I don't have two cameras to set up, like, it'd be going crazy doing that. So here's the cover of it. Open it up to the top comic book movies of all time up until the year 2003. August was the publication date of the magazine. So 31 years ago. No, not 31. 21 years ago. I couldn't do math before, if you didn't notice. I was saying 31 years. It's 21 years, Pete. You don't know how to do math. So here we are. It's counting down from 50. Now, you probably can't see what it's got written down there, so I'm going to take a look. I mean, maybe you can. Maybe you got a big enough screen. But it's hard for me to make out what it is. So at 50, and I'm not going to read all the blurbs that they got, but I'm going to do the quick little countdown here. At 50, they got Batman and Robin. At 49 is Steel. At 48 is Red Sonja. At 47, I didn't realize this was based on a comic. The movie Virus. Has Jamie Lee Curtis in it. Number 46, Fantastic Four from 1994, the unreleased film. Number 45, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Number 44, which I thought was a bit harsh, Conan the Destroyer. I get it. It's not as good as Conan the Barbarian. But there's a couple on here where I'm like, really? Like, they put the Crow sequels. They put the Crow sequels above Conan the Destroyer. Really? All right. So 44, Conan the Destroyer. 43, Captain America. Now, this one is the one with Matt Salinger in it. I think it's from like 1990 or something like that. Kind of around that time. 42 is Tank Girl. 41, they've got Supergirl. Number 40, they've got The Crow 2. Number 39, and this I also thought was a bit harsh. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 2, Secret of the Ooze. Number 38, this to them ranking higher, The Crow 3. I thought that was kind of odd. This one also kind of is, I'm like, really? I know, it's not perfect, okay? But number 37, you just heard the ones I had listed. Alright? Now you're going to hear the ones I list after. You're going to be like, really? Number 37 is Superman 3. Number 36, Batman Forever. Which also I think is kind of harsh. You know, I got my problems with Batman Forever, but holy smokes. Number 35, Barbed Wire. Like, Barbed Wire ranks higher than Superman 3, Batman Forever, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. I don't really agree with that. Number 34, Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd ranks higher than those. I don't know about that. Number 33, I love it, but it should not rank this high. Return of Swamp Thing. Return of Swamp Thing ranks higher than those other films. Number 32, Bulletproof Monk. Let's get to the next slide here so you guys can see. Number 31, Men in Black 2. Number 30, Spawn. Now this list ranks Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 higher, much higher, than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. Which I think would kind of be universally panned. But I don't know, maybe it wouldn't. Number 29 is The Punisher. This one being the Dolph Lundgren film. That's an okay film, but I don't know if that ranks higher than several of these. Number 28, Howard the Duck. That's ranked pretty high. That is ranked pretty high. And I have no hate for Howard the Duck. But wow. Number 27, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. Number 26, Mystery Men. This, I felt, also was like, really? That's... Number 25, Batman Returns. I would rank Batman Returns much higher than 25. Especially if you're talking about some of the other films that were mentioned. 24, Swamp Thing. And I mean, honestly, I like Return of Swamp Thing more than the first Swamp Thing. If you ever see the first Swamp Thing, it's got some pacing issues. And it's got some costume issues, too. The second costume for Return of Swamp Thing is much better. Much better. And the pacing issues are almost non-existent. 23, Batman, the 66 film with Adam West. Which, again, I still think, compared to some of these, like Time Cop at 21. I don't know. 22, Daredevil. Which is, I think that's ranked kind of high. 21, Time Cop. 20, Conan the Barbarian. 19, The Mask. Going on to the next page as we count down the rest of it. Number 18, Blade 2. Which, honestly, I like Blade 2 more than Blade 1. I don't know if that's just me. I like Blade 1. But I like Blade 2 more than Blade 1. From Hell at 17. Number 16, American Splendor. Number 15, The Crow. Number 14, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Again, this is a list from 2003. Number 13, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. Now, that is a great one. Number 12, Men in Black. I would take Batman, Batman, Mask of Phantasm, Crow, and Ninja Turtles above Men in Black every day of the week. Maybe that's just me. Number 11, Akira. Number 10, Blade. And again, I like Blade. I don't know if this is the top 10 here. Although, number 7, I question number 7. Intensely. Number 9, Batman. That's the 89 Batman. You could probably see these here. Number 8, The Rocketeer. Number 7, Ghost World. Ghost World to me is like... Ghost World, you gotta be in like the 30s. At the very least. Number 7, Ghost World. Like, did they pay? Did they pay to like, you know, to get in there at number 7? Who knows? But Ghost World is not in the top 10 of comic book movies. I'm sorry. And if you guys really like Ghost World, I apologize. You can like what you like and whatnot. But even in 2003, I do not put Ghost World in the top 10. X-Men is number 6. Now, the last 5. Number 5, Road to Perdition. Now, that's a good movie, but again, you know, maybe in around the 20s, I would say. Top 5. Number 5, Road to Perdition. Number 4, Superman. Number 3, Superman 2. Number 2, Spider-Man. No Spider-Man 2, 3, etc. None of that out yet. It's just the 1. And number 1, which I like this one, but I don't know if I would have picked 1 for it. X2. X-Men United. It's like the airline that the X-Men take. And there you have it. Wizards top 50 back in 2003. Comic book movies. Now, there's a couple things also from that magazine that I want to show you guys, but I'll show you guys a bit later. Let me see what you guys have to say about not just the list, but also about some of the characters or plots or whatever that you'd like to see adapted to live action or animation. MXO Raven says the first 2 Superman movies were good. The other 2 fell short. Yeah, and I feel like they fall short, you know, precipitously. 3 is better than 4. 4 had some nice moments, but overall, holy smokes. That was a mess. Had some nice moments, had some heart. Things just had more heart, it feels like, back then. Even when they were steaming piles. But 3 was fun. 3 had some pretty nice moments. Could have been better. But I really like it upon further viewing. Kinda, you know, I get what they were going for. And Richard Pryor was huge at the time, too. You know, it's hard for me to nitpick about Superman 3. Because I really do enjoy that one. But I get it. You know, it's campier than the first 2, even though the first 2 have their moments of camp. Doc Mass says, modern writers don't even care what came before. Everyone's so busy putting their stamp on something, you know? Why don't you put your stamp on the legacy? that has been built. That's how you actually manage to put your stamp on it. Is like you manage to go, I'm going to honor the legacy of what's being built here. I'm not going to like turn it up on its own. You know, at that point, you might as well go, you know, you can get inspired by that totally and say, well, I understand this character's out there. I want to turn it upside down. And you know what you do then? You make your own character. You make your own story. That's what you do. Now, when it comes to this sort of stuff, you know, there's so much corporate bureaucracy. So it really is difficult to tell, okay, who made this decision? Who said to do that? You know, maybe they handed in a perfectly great script and then it got turned inside out by whoever was in charge, or, you know, they got a directive of you do this, you do that. That stuff happens all the time, so I get it. But it's unfortunate because it's not just a problem of the actors, the writers, or whoever it is. It's a lot of, you know, when things go south like that in every way, shape, and form, there's a lot of people responsible. But sometimes, and if not almost all the time, the people that are responsible like to throw everybody else under the bus and scapegoat the whole thing. As if like they had no idea. Like you just showed up one day and you made a movie. We didn't know they were going to make this movie. We only gave them $200 million. And we walked away after that. Let's see. Don B says reversing time by flying around the Earth backwards was cool. I really dug that as a kid, but like I couldn't. After a while, I mean, and I'm still like, it is what it is, you know. But I was like, man, that would mess things up. You all of a sudden did that, and you were able to make the Earth start then spinning back. Oh my lord! Cataclysmic event caused by Superman. It looked cool, though. That's for sure. It looked cool. I don't think he ever did it in the comics, though, right? I don't think he ever did that in the comics. Let's see here. Comics for Life says, the actor in Smallville is, for me, the best Luthor. Not played. Comical. Michael Rosenbaum did a good job. Yeah. The voice of Flash on the Justice League animated series. That my guest tomorrow was the voice of Wonder Woman. Susan Eisenberg. Yeah, Rosenbaum did a great job. Let's see. Doc says, I would love to see Camelot 3000 movie or the original Frank Miller Ronin. Some good picks. Rachel says, when will Alterna get into the gaming market? As soon as a gaming developer wants to talk about it. AL, what's up, AL? Hope you're doing good. Comics Life says the Teen Titans, but faithful to Wolfman Perez. Yeah, that'd be good. AL, we are talking about comic book movies and shows. Any of them that you'd like to see be brought to life in an ideal situation, of course. Don't think about anything wrong, because many things can go wrong. In an ideal situation, a character or a plot that you'd like to see brought to life either through live action or animation, and if it already has happened, you feel it missed the mark, you can still express that as well. Let's see. Fearsome Bullet says, imagine they did Berserk, Game of Thrones style. Oh, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, I could see that. And the problem, the problem is, oh man, it feels like it should be 2034, doesn't it? That's the problem. I'm reading 2003 today. I'm like, wow, 31 years ago. That's only 21 years ago. It feels like it should be 2034. It feels like 10 years have gone by. That's for sure. I think many of you would agree. Let's see. Rachel says the first Fantastic Four from Fox was decent. Let's see. AL says, are we talking about bad movie adaptations of comics? No, we're trying to talk about good ones. Good ones. Good adaptations. But there's a lot of bad ones. But if I'm trying to ask you guys if you wanted to make a good adaptation of something that hasn't been done before, with a character that hasn't been used before, or a plot line that hasn't been done, or if it has been done, one that you felt maybe missed the mark and could be better. Doc says Conan the Destroyer should definitely be higher. I agree. Don, you think The Crow is terrible? Oh boy, brother. Oh boy. I'm going to agree to disagree. Now, the sequels, I would say yes all day. But the first one? Oh, man. AL, what about Dragon Ball Revolution? You want to see that as like a live action? Oh, it's called Dragon Ball Evolution. Yeah, that'd be interesting to see how would they handle, doing a live action for that sort of stuff. Ideally, I mean, hey, if you do it in an ideal way, yeah, I guess it could be pretty awesome. It's not comic related, but I'd love to still see a true to the core source material feeling characterization of Thundercats, Masters of the Universe. I know they're not comics. And hell, I'll go as far as to even say Transformers, because I don't think we've ever seen a true to the core of that. And again, I know they're not comics. That just got me thinking. Dr. Matt says, I think that Captain America movie is one of the worst movies of all time. Yeah, I don't know how. I would rather watch Batman and Robin over that. Not even a question. There's so many pacing issues in that Captain America film. There's so many inconsistencies. So many things that make absolutely no sense whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. It's way... I think it's way worse than the unreleased Fantastic Four film. Way worse. I think that film's more on the par with like the Flash TV series. That kind of vibe. I think it's more on the par with like the Return of Swamp Thing. Stuff like that. But the Captain America movie for back then. Ooh. And for those that didn't know, the guy that played Captain America, is the son of J.D. Salinger, the guy who wrote Catcher in the Rye. JW Learning says Jim Carrey as Riddler saved that film, Batman Forever. I love all the interesting, different opinions everybody has on this stuff. That's why I love this kind of topic. Gets people talking. Gets people thinking. Expressing themselves. And we could agree, disagree, whatever. Everybody loves what they love. Likes what they like. Doesn't like what they doesn't like. Paul says, Howard the Duck above the Punisher. Was Howard the Duck above the Punisher? Or do you wish to place Howard the Duck above the Punisher? Let me look back. Yeah, Howard the Duck is above the Punisher. So are you commenting more like, man, really? TMNT3 was beyond terrible. It's pretty bad. I've tried to make my peace with it. I think I managed to. I'm never going to watch it again. That's for sure. But it's funny how at the time that was an abomination to me. An abomination. I don't know how the hell it ranks so high on their list. The second one was far better. Far better. Even with a whiny Donatello. But since the third one has come out, I can't get into those Michael Bay ones. at all. And it's a shame because I think they got the characterization right on the turtles. And there's a couple other things, especially the second one, how they nail it for Bebop and Rocksteady. But there's some other horrible things about those films I just can't get into overall. I'd rather watch the third TMNT than the Michael Bay once again. But I don't want to see the third TMNT anytime. Ever again. Let's see. AL says Men in Black 2 wasn't bad. Men in Black Internet. Well, yeah. This is before things, and it's funny too, because looking at this list, a lot of the stuff you're like, I really wonder what would they do if they updated it. What would they do if they updated it? What would be the new top 50? It's a shame that something akin to Wizard, if not Wizard in and of itself, was out again. It doesn't need to be a magazine or anything, even though, maybe do it. It doesn't have to be as big. But if it was just a site with the people that ran it, there is a very interesting, risque interview in the back of this issue too, Wizard 143, with Mr. Joe Quesada, that I thought was quite interesting. But that will not be discussed on this stream today. Given, 21 years, I guess things change a lot. But it'd be interesting if Wizard, or at least who was involved with it, kind of got together to do their own thing, take to the internet, take to a site, a YouTube, whatever. Agree or disagree with anything about Wizard and their content. It was definitely a big catalyst, I think, for people getting into comics, getting into collecting, getting into everything that was comic related. It's a shame. See, AL says, I watched Howard the Duck as a kid and I liked it. Yeah, I liked it as a kid. I still kind of like it for what it is. I like a lot of things that maybe... I like things that are really good. I like things that are so-so. I like things that are horrible. I have like a different weird sliding scale. I think we're probably all the same way. That I know some people, though, that don't understand the concept of it's so bad it's good. But I don't know many people. So there's some things for me that they're so bad that they're good. Howard the Duck is one of them. It's got a lot of enjoyable moments. You just go for the ride. Don't think too much. And there's other things that really hit you because they're just so darn good. Don B says Captain Carrot movie would crush all these. That would be fun. I could see that. AL says Mystery Men was fun, I thought. I liked Ben Stiller. Yeah, I like Mystery Men. I would rank Mystery Men higher than Ghost World. But I would not put Ghost World at 7. That's for sure. That one is totally mind-blowing to me. Jake Blue says Daredevil before Conan and Blade 2? Nope. Yeah, I hear you. I don't... Now, Conan the Destroyer, right? I would still rank Conan the Destroyer above Daredevil. And Blade 2 definitely above Daredevil. Holy smokes. Let's see. Paul says Blade 2 is a better film. Secondary characters are more fleshed out. That romantic interest in the first one was a plank. Yeah, man. Yep. Great summary. Couldn't say it better myself. Blade 2 I thought was great. Definitely enjoyed it more. And I liked the first one. The first one was great. But Blade 2, I liked it better. Jake, yeah, I don't think Akira is... I would say it's somewhere between 20 to 30. And I respect it. And I enjoy it. But I don't think it's, even considering 2003, even though there's not a whole lot more that I would honestly say is that great, that it would infiltrate the top 20. that have come out since. But I think Akira is somewhere between 20 and 30. If you think it's below 30, I could accept, especially depending on where you're situating things. I could see a 30 to 40. Absolutely. Docs has never even heard of Ghost World. Yeah. Was it okay? Artsy movie, slice of life. It's okay. Steve Buscemi's in it. Scarlett Johansson. Thora Birch. It's definitely not number 7. Not in any list. Holy crap. Yes, Rocketeer was a comic character. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, Paul. Yeah, exactly. It was just odd in and of itself. 2003, Spider-Man 2 did not come out. I would not make Spider-Man 2 number 1 though either. Spider-Man 2 would be like number 15 or something for me. But Spider-Man 2 was 2004. So 2003, it was only the first one at that point. But yeah, X2, it's like, it's solid. But not number 1. I don't think X2 is top 10. Yeah, absolutely. Instead of me reading your comments, Paul, I'm just going to ask you to just be here. How's it going, Paul?
It's going all right.
What are your thoughts tonight?
We've been talking a lot about movies. What do you think about TV shows? Any that stick out to you?
Ooh, okay. Ones that I love, right up there, is Batman the Animated Series.
Oh, yeah.
Loved X-Men, Spider-Man the Animated Series. Loved Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I loved the Super Friends series even when I was a kid. It hits a certain point, though, where eventually it becomes annoying because it becomes way too focused on, like, a whole bunch of characters that I just did not care for. But I loved the Superpowers team, Galactic Guardians. They were great.
Yeah, there was a little bit before my time. Was it because of Super Friends that, like, Apache Chief and Black Lightning and all that? It was almost kind of tongue-in-cheek, the amount of love that they got in that.
Yeah, so, Super Friends for a while became like the C and D lister show.
Yeah,
which was
they used a lot of Plastic Man, a lot of weird stuff. Where you're like,
hey, I just wanted a lot of Wonder Twins.
Oh yeah, Wonder Twins. How about any of the live action? What was your opinion of Legion?
I didn't watch it because none of the commercials looked good to me. Did you see it?
I watched it all the way through. Interesting show. I'll give it that. There were shots in there where I was like, that looks like a panel of a Bill Sienkiewicz comic. Like, they did a really good job, I think. That
was FX, right?
Yeah, it was on FX. I never read much Legion, though, so I'm not sure how accurate to the comic it is, but it was pretty cool. Yeah, definitely a good show. The most recent Swamp Thing was good, too. So good that, like, it was had too big of a budget, and they were like, we're going to cancel it, and that was that. So it was a one-and-done season, but yeah, the most recent Swamp Thing's worth watching, too, if you get a chance.
Yeah, that's on my Tubi list. I'm surprised it's on there. There's a bunch of good things on Tubi. For those that don't know, Tubi is it's just free to stream. There's just a ton of things on there, not just comic-related. But yeah, I definitely want to check that one out. Derek Mears was almost in the chair, but his agent screwed the deal up. And then I talked to him at Terrificon years after. And he was like, "That's why I'm not with her anymore."
Yeah,
he was a nice dude though. But yeah, I really want to check that out. He looks great in Swamp Thing.
Yeah,
but yeah, that was only one season, right?
Good actors in it too. Yeah, it's only lasted one season, and you could tell why. It was just they had a lot more effects in it, which is strange because they had, I'd probably say, the same amount of special effects in Doom Patrol, but I think Doom Patrol kind of carried the water for the message a little bit more. Not that it's a terrible show. Doom Patrol is a very watchable show. I wouldn't go out of my way, though. I'd check out this before that. The first season of The Flash, the CW Flash, is good, and then you could probably just give up on it after that. It gets progressively worse.
I tried so hard with that show, and it was losing me like episode after episode. I think I gave up after like the third or fourth episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you watch Arrow at all?
I tried with that too. I gave up after episode 2.
I don't blame you. Yeah, it really was. They were just like, well, we don't have Batman.
like
They'll never give us Batman, so let's just make Oliver Queen Batman. And you're like, what? All right.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's when I started hitting the this isn't for me. And it was
Yeah.
and it was weird to say that as like a lifelong comic fan, to be like, yeah, all these comic things just not for me. I'm just not feeling them.
Well, it was weird too. I think the best of those shows out of that, the Berlanti-verse or whatever they were calling him, he was the showrunner for all of them. Was what was that, Legends of Tomorrow? It was the one that was a little bit. It was the most comic booky of them, in that it had just interesting, wacky characters all on a team going on adventures. It was a little bit more episodic as opposed to this long, drawn out, almost kind of like Mexican telenovela, where you're just like, I want to see this guy fighting crime and dealing less with his like girlfriend issues and stuff. That works. I mean, it's worked for Spider-Man for years, but it felt like a CW show.
There's a balance, It's like you can't just do the whole thing, and then he just punched that one guy in that panel right there. You see that? And it's like, oh, it's because he was looking at his girl. Oh, well then. That's a superhero book for you.
Right.
That'll teach you.
It could be worse. I guess they could be having coffee and talking about their problems for a third of the episode.
That's true. That's true. Comics for Life, you brought up a good point here. Yeah, was The Shadow on the list? I think that was a pretty solid film. That wasn't on the list, and then also The Phantom wasn't on the list either, which I thought was kind of odd.
How do you miss those two?
Yeah.
And then you put Ghost World at 7.
Ghost World at 7. I looked at that.
That's what that. Yeah, that's just them just trying to be. You haven't heard of Ghost World? It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, they're trying to get like that slice of life hipstery cred. In there. That was what, a Daniel Close, I think, right? I think made that book.
I don't know. It's one of those kind of like I'm not saying Love and Rockets is bad, but it's one of those where it's like, oh, it's a slice of life type of book, Not my thing.
Yeah, Daniel Close, Fantagraphics. Yeah, Daniel Close. But yeah, it's a number 7.
Yeah, it's a little high, especially with the list of only 50.
Yeah,
and I'd agree on Akira too. I think Akira has epicness behind it. We were discussing this on a Geronimo stream, but I was saying a lot of people got into anime, I think, from other things than Akira. Akira you watched and you were like, man, this is like the Citizen Kane of animated films. It just keeps going. But
and I feel like that movie really picked up more steam as like a cult film in terms of popularity after the fact, like way after the fact, especially once you had like Toonami making that anime explosion in the US. But at this point, that's pretty high on that list in 2003 especially.
So as far as adaptations, is there anything that they haven't made or you want to see remade?
Well, there was and I guess I still want to see it done right, but Moon Knight. I know that they did whatever they did, but
that didn't. Oscar Isaac, he's really like I guess he's a reliable actor that they can get for a decent amount of money, so he's in a lot of things. He's okay. I think I mentioned, it was on one of these streams, he was like the okayest actor in the Star Wars staff, I think, for the recent trilogy, which is just well, we'll just save it for another time, but it's bad.
Yeah, man. Speaking of things where I just tapped out, I think, like, what was that? As soon as in The Force Awakens, when they were doing the whole, like, okay, who talks? I talk, you talk. I was like, I'm done. I shut it off.
Yeah, as soon as they had Finn being like, I'm in charge now, and I'm like, we all thought this guy was going to be a cool, like, former commando, seen some stuff, wants to join the rebels to fight for good. But they made him an almost late 90s Chris Tucker character. And you're like, oh, come on, man.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
And that, and two, when they started off on the desert planet, I'm like, wait a minute here. Are they just copying the homework? They just went right back to the original Star Wars, and that's all they did. And you get a legendary actor like Max von Sydow, and you're like, yeah, he's dead in a minute and a half. You're like,
and that dude, man.
That's certainly one way to direct a film, I guess, but whatever.
You know, one thing too about that list that I just read also, I'm like, where the hell's Flash Gordon?
Oh my God, yeah.
You know? Where
What
the
a
hell's Flash
crazy
Gordon?
film.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the entire, yeah, speaking of, everybody's talking about composers, you have Queen do the entire soundtrack? Come on.
Yeah. That film
No.
just gets like better every time I see it.
Yeah. What a great film, too. It's just like, it's not high cinema, but it's, you watch it and it puts a smile on your face. And that's,
Oh
you
yeah.
can't say that for a lot of things these days. So, yeah.
I thought
Good.
that, you know, whatever they did, whatever they were conjuring up there, the vibe, the look, the feel, all of it, if they had just ported that over for like the Fantastic Four at that point in time in the early 90s, I thought that would have been really cool. Just go full tilt into
Yeah.
the direction of this otherworldliness, you know, get like a
Okay.
big sci-fi story going with it.
Yeah, they
but
get
have that
lost in
camp.
space or the negative zone and they're doing crazy stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got a guy who can stretch and, you know, another guy who's made of stone. Yeah, you can just do something crazy with it.
Yeah, even if you don't take them off the world, but you do, like, you know, Doom captures them, and it's got that vibe still of, you know, them being in his castle, and there's all kinds of crazy crap they got to go through and
Yeah, you
figure
get
out.
plenty of extras dressed up as Doom bots. You get all kinds of craziness. Yeah.
Yeah. Sheldon says to update the new. I'll have to, I'll have to make my own list, and then I guess I'll do another show about that. That'll be fun, and I'll incorporate shows too. Going back to some of the shows that you were talking about, when I was a kid, I really liked the Flash TV show, and then I rewatched it as an adult, and I was like, I still like some moments and stuff, but this don't hold up the same way it did in my little kid brain.
No, it was on TV around the same era as like that dinosaurs show. So it was like, yeah, you got to remember there was hots and colds definitely during that kind of time period, and that was the Flash. Like it had some cool effects. It looked okay because it was around. They were really trying to ride the wave of Batman '89, and it didn't work out.
Oh yeah,
unfortunately.
especially
It's a
with
shame.
the Danny Elfman theme and everything like that too.
Yeah, it's a shame because it seems like John Wesley Shipp's a nice guy. He shows up in the more recent Flash a whole bunch because they have him show up as Jay Garrick from like one of the other universes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was definitely nice when I met him. I gave him one of my 5 minutes for art book because I drew a Flash in there, and he was like, "Oh my God, thank you." He's like, let me give you a signed 8x10, and I was like, "What?" He's like, yeah. He's like, let me give you one, and so he gifted me one, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
yeah.
It was him in like the Flash outfit, and so he was a really nice dude when I met him, and that was great. AL, yeah, you know what? That's true too. They didn't mention Dick Tracy in that either, in that list. That's kind of weird.
It's weird that they would mention the Rocketeer and then not like all of his contemporaries.
Yeah. Especially with some of the stuff they went out of their way to mention to specifically crap on it. Because like the first like 50 to 40, everything is like, this movie sucks. Like if you read the blurbs, everything about it is like, this is a piece of trash. So it's like, is this the top 50 best? Or are you guys just going through some of these to kind of crap on them? I mean, but that's Wizard for you, and that's what made everybody love and hate the magazine at certain times.
What's interesting too, because that I've completely forgot the only Punisher film at that time was the Lundgren one, which that was definitely a direct-to-video feeling. I forget who the main bad guy was. Was the main bad guy the doctor friend from The Fugitive?
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think that's
trying
what
to
it was.
remember it. Because I know he's got like his son, and then at the end, like Dolph Lundgren's like on his knees, like having the kid put the gun to his head and be like, "Go ahead, kid." He's like, "Kill me," and he's like, and then the kid can't do it, and he's like, "Don't be bad, otherwise you're gonna deal with me." But it was an okay TV movie, type of thing, but not what they ranked it at. Holy crap! Yeah.
What'd you think of the other ones that came out, like the Thomas Jane one? And
I like the Thomas Jane one. I thought Warzone was okay and could have been really, really good, but I like them both better than I like the TV show though, or the Netflix show.
Oh yeah, this I don't think I even finished the second season when they gave him a plucky teen sidekick. I was like, oh my god, why are you doing this?
Yeah,
But
we struggled to get through the first season, and when that was done, we were like, no, we're not continuing with this.
yeah, well, it's just especially after you started with that second season of Daredevil when he was in it, and it was just like that's all you needed. It was like almost shot for shot what Frank Miller put in the comic, beautiful. And then yeah, they launched his own show, and it was I don't know.
Yeah.
They tried to. Sorry, God.
I'm sorry. David says Blade 1 was fire, better than Blade 2 because the ending was weak. Akira set the trend for dope anime. Yeah. You know, Blade 1, Blade 2, it's one of those, like, if you like one over the other better, I'm not even going to have the argument because it's like I like them both. But for me, I like Blade 2 better because of, I mean, you had mentioned a bunch of the different reasons as to why.
Yeah.
I just felt like it landed a lot of different things a bit better. But Blade 3 is...
I'll give Blade 1 this. Stephen Dorff was really good in it as the antagonist.
Oh, yeah.
The guy in Blade 2 was just kind of, he was like super powered vampire, and it was more of the relationship between him and the elder vampire. It was a father-son kind of thing. You're like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But Stephen Dorff, you were just like, you kind of hated him. He was so cocky. You were like, all right, that's the traditional bad guy that I hate because he's cocky.
Yeah. See, oh yes, Black Vulcan. Yeah, it wasn't Black Lightning, it was Black Vulcan. You're correct, Dr. Mask in Super Friends. Spicer says Sin City, not at this point in time for 2003, which is what that list was. But if you're saying Sin City for a different reason, then okay. Yes.
Sin
Jake.
City was 2005, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Jake says Apache Chief was awesome. I liked every single character, even the Wonder Twins. I just didn't like when episodes became so predominant, and it just felt, I was only, especially as a kid, I was just showing up for certain characters, and when they just weren't around, it was like, why did I just watch that? But I appreciate it more now, knowing and appreciating more other characters. Oh man, the Cloak and Dagger show. I didn't even. I
forgot that existed.
Yeah, that was a Netflix one too, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
Or was it?
Because it's a lot like Runaways. They had that as a show too, and I don't even like it. I know it happened. I just maybe it happened in the other universe that CERN split us off from. I just forget it.
Yeah, there's nothing about that Cloak and Dagger show that appealed to me on any level, and I love Cloak and Dagger. That's a great concept, great pairing.
Yeah,
but man, David said I heard Swamp Thing was great. Yeah, I gotta go check that.
They did a good job in the Titans show. In general, it wasn't a great show, but the characters of Hawk and Dove, whenever that guy's there, he does a superb job. He's the guy that's in the Jack Reacher. I think it's on Amazon show. The really big guy, but he plays Hawk in the Titans show that they had 3 years ago, and it was pretty good. They did, I think, the storylines that Jeff Johns did, which I guess there was a big internal thing that people were complaining, a lot of comic book writers, that since Jeff Johns was the head of whatever distributing or publishing through their TV branch, that all of his stories were getting picked up so he could pocket the residuals. Their words, not mine, but there does seem to be some, coincidences there.
Interesting. Well, I mean, that makes sense. Let's see, we got Nicholas says, did you know they wanted to make a Spider-Man and Hulk movie with Nicholas Hammond and Lou Ferrigno in '84? Yeah, I did know that, actually. Nicholas Hammond being Spider-Man on that series, that was kind of like, I know Stan Lee hated that series. He's famous for hating that Spider-Man live action series. But that Spider-Man series had like some problems. It had some problems. Do you ever see anything from that series?
No. I think the only live action Spider-Man prior to Tobey Maguire was like the Japanese one. That's like the only thing that even I remotely
That's
remember.
like Supaida Man, right? Something like that.
Maybe all I know is there was a scene where he pulls out a machine gun. So I was like, okay, I don't know what this is, but
yeah, Nicholas Hammond's a good cast for Peter Parker. He looks very, Peter Parker comic book John Romita kind of, but
sure.
And the suit's not too bad. I like the kind of the reflective eyes that they had going on him, but they didn't have any of the villains, and it was just kind of blah, you know.
Isn't that interesting though? That whenever I talk to my brother, we always talk about how Batman and Spider-Man are the big ones for their respective companies, and it's because they have these villains galleries that are so broad and colorful.
Oh yeah, you need that supporting cast. Without them, you can only do so much with that main character.
And that's the problem with these movies where they keep trying to have him like, all right, he has to stop the sky laser that's going to end the world. And you're like, I just want to see him fight the Scorpion, man. I don't care. Like, the first movie, they had him fight the Vulture. Like, all right, cool. But then they threw in Iron Man and all this other stuff. And you're like, they keep muddying it up looking for threads to connect their universe together. And you're just like, you can make a Batman
they're
movie
learning all the wrong lessons from the comics over the years. Yeah. Especially the modern comics, tap into more of like that episodic where they you got a guest character in there for something, okay, but largely it felt like these titles were their own world, especially if you're talking certain ones like X-Men. X-Men felt like it was a whole separate universe a lot of the time, that like no one bothered with them and they kind of bothered with nobody. It was very rare when you had all these other characters within that world, or vice versa, until Wolverine starts showing up everywhere, of course. But, for the comics, it turns into like this episodic thing that you can actually have this organic world building, tell a variety of stories, and not have to constantly wonder, well, how is this going to impact everything? And for me, Thor 2 was when I was like, this is really strange that no one's showing up. Because this seems like a big threat to Earth. Now, if that movie was more taking place in Asgard instead of on Earth, I could be like, all right, fine.
Right.
But where the threat was on Earth, and you already have the Avengers, it just kind of seems weird to not have the Avengers help out.
Right, and didn't they had a crossover series recently that was a pile of garbage, but it had to deal with Malekith and the Dark Elves and stuff, and it's like, you have all these different realms that you could do, not even having to do Asgard. Because they were fighting on the world of the Jotunheim or whatever, the ice giants in the first film. So it's like, just go to another fantasy world or whatever and make it that genre. It's this kind of, that's what Thor really always was. It was this weird space fantasy, and especially when Kirby was drawing it. And it's like, go with that completely.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They were like, if we film in London, we get a tax credit, and it's all that,
Yeah, that's the thing, is once you start going down that road with a lot of stuff in film, especially, there's 100 reasons for a lot of the decisions that get made, and sometimes the last one at all is creative.
Right.
That wins out sometimes, almost never. So it's really difficult sometimes to pinpoint exactly, well, where did this go wrong? Don says, guys, Marvel 2-in-1, Spidey and Iron Man, those are classic. And I agree, but the problem there, and I think this is a problem that extends to a lot of stuff that has to do with comics, I just like to see them get back to that serialized episodic style storytelling format, period. And I don't mean just like with films. The shows, animated shows, I haven't watched X-Men 97. A lot of people really enjoy that. There's things about it I've seen where I'm like, I can't get into the vibe, but I'm one of these weirdos who, like, I'll get into that like 5 years from now and be like, oh yeah, it wasn't so bad. I watched that 5 years after everybody else did. I'm like, hey guys, you watched X-Men 97? You're like, yeah, 5 years ago, Pete. So I'm one of those kind of people. I watched like Game of Thrones and it was on season 4. That's when I finally started being like, yeah, I guess I'll watch Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those things where I'd like to see that. I think comics, you can adapt it a lot better to being a show, a serialized show, as opposed to a cinematic universe. I think once that happens, it turns into a big, gigantic mess.
Yeah, the early on in Hellboy, it felt that way, where you're just like, okay, we're dealing with Rasputin, we're dealing with all these different kind of mythical creatures or beings or sorcerers, and then when it became BPRD in the comics and it became very issue to issue, big, wide, overarching plot, it lost a little bit of that magic, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And it kind of really handcuffs you to what you can do. I think that the stories end up suffering for it, and then the big elephant in the room when it comes to live action is that you're dealing with people who age in real time.
Right.
So it becomes, if you get this actor and they're there and they're 40 or something, and you want to have them on for like 6 movies, and you go, well, those 6 movies are going to take 15 or so years to come to fruition. You got to look at that and go, well, you can only tell so many stories because you got to factor in age in the appropriate way. And I don't think they still have figured out a way to do it deftly, even though they've really should manage to incorporate it. And I think, like, if you had, like, let's take X-Men for example. X-Men is the perfect thing to incorporate it because you could have characters that grow up into their characters. So then they start to become the people who are there. And then you have the rookie class coming up. It's kind of like a sports franchise. So if you treat X-Men movies like that, you can really have a forever franchise. Some of the other ones, Avengers, you could do that too. Anything that really revolves around a team, I think you could play it out that way. But it's also, do those actors want to kind of be committed to something like that, where they're essentially signing on for the rest of their life?
Right.
So then that becomes a whole other problem. I'd just like to see where they go back and they tell it. Just tell me one story. Just tell me one story. I don't need a whole universe. I don't need to do homework. I don't need to watch like 50 hours of something else just to understand the one reference in this. Just tell me a single story.
Yeah, and it should be able to stand on its own. And I think they had that a bit in, I'm not sure how much you follow Star Wars, but that recent show Andor was pretty good, but there was a lot of things where people were like, well, if you watch the cartoon, the 7th season of Clone Wars, this means this. And I'm like, I didn't need to know that. The story stood on its own, and they had all those little bits in there for people that did follow all of the...
Yeah, because I love that wink and the nod and the, and if you know, you know. But
Right.
It doesn't hinder your ability to know what's happening in the moment, and that's great.
Yeah.
And I'd put that in there all day long. But when it becomes, the characters and then you get who they are and this and that because it was on this like TV show on this episode that also kind of ties to the movie that's happening in 3 years. It's just like, what are you guys doing? Again, learning all the wrong lessons from comics over the years. Because I think that's why the comic industry started feeling like it was being crushed under its own continuity weight. Because they were like, how are people supposed to get into this? There's so many of these things for so long, and our continuity is so bad because it's working against us. Right? We're not going to get new readers, and it's like, guys, your continuity isn't the thing that's at fault. The people being able to have strong characterization and just tell and stick to the plot within the story is the fault. Having big giant events is the fault. Constantly doing that's the thing that's wrong. Not the continuity. The continuity has nothing to do with it. The continuity is what's giving you something that when people read the thing that they're reading now and they enjoy it, they go, wow, look at how much more I can go and check out.
Right. And that was the problem with those big events. They complain about saying, well, how are we going to get new people into this? And those big events are really kind of meant to, milk the audience they already have.
Yeah, yeah.
What they are. They're not. It's not going to hook anybody if you have this big event because then nobody's going to know what's happening. They're not going to be as invested.
Yeah, and the longer this kind of stuff goes on with like the cinematic universe, I think the more that you're gonna really see the insincerity of it.
Yeah.
It's just gonna feel like gimmick after gimmick, pandering all the time, and then being lost. And then when something amazing comes along that could be creative and could be fantastic, they're gonna go, yeah, but how does that fit into the past 25 years of our cinematic universe? We can't tell that story.
Which is odd because didn't they just have a show recently? Was it that werewolf character for Marvel where it was black and white, Werewolf by Night?
Oh
or something?
yeah, I heard people really like that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it was like a blip on the radar, and that was it. And I'm thinking, I'm sure there were people who were like, well, how does this fit in with the Thanos snap, and where was he during the Chitauri invasion and all that? So, but it's cool that somebody took a chance and made something like that, though, because hey, look, it caused a stir. Whereas, yeah, Cloak and Dagger and Runaways, we almost forgot they existed.
No, I didn't follow. I checked out of Marvel cinematic stuff after Thor Ragnarok, so I didn't see Endgame or Infinity War or whatever.
Okay.
When Thanos does the snap thing,
Yeah.
is there anything within that plot line that even hints or suggests the fact that he didn't so much as like eliminate a lot of life as he also kind of created a lot of different superheroes and supervillains in its wake, like almost like what he did set off a chain of events that caused an awakening of superpowers within people.
I don't think so. From
Like,
what I
that
from
could
what I
have been
remember,
an interesting angle, I think, to explore. That could have
Yeah.
explained a lot of heroes out of nowhere, or villains too.
yeah, no, they did it where he did the snap, and then for some reason 5 years passes, and then they stop him, and or they fix things, but then they don't fix things by going back 5 years. So there's all kinds of fallout and problems because of, well, people came back and 5 years. Well, my wife moved on. She thought I turned into smoke, or my business collapsed, or some strangers moved into my house because they thought I was dead. That always pissed
boy.
me off. That it was, yeah. I'll ruin it for you. It was Tony Stark because he didn't want to see his kid vanish. He was like, he made a deal with Captain America, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Steve Rogers is like, yeah, we'll do this for you, and we're gonna ruin maybe billions of people's lives, but we're gonna do this so that your 5-year-old daughter will stick around so she could become whatever Iron Kid later on. It was really. I was really
wow.
out after Age of Ultron. Age of Ultron, I was like, oof, there's some definite holes here. It was
Yeah,
the
I
weaknesses
tried.
really kind of weighed me down. And after that, it was just, I think it was after Winter Soldier, it was just a drop off a cliff, really, in story quality for me. So
Yeah, they definitely started getting strange.
yeah,
Well, I gotta read 2 more of these wizard pages. Did you want to stick around for that, or did you
Sure.
want to just hang out in the chat? You want to stick around?
yeah, why not?
Okay, so these 2, it piqued my interest. Now this one here.
Well, really quick, you said you held on to 4 wizard issues. I want to take a guess. Is one of them the one that has the super quiz in it that all the like big writers took? Like they had a super hard comic book quiz that had like 50 questions that were nigh impossible.
Oh no, I don't think it's in this issue anyway. It was this one was a there's one of them on it that's got Superman drawn by Joe Quesada. I don't know why I hanged on to it. It must have meant something to me.
Okay.
And then the other one was Spider-Man it was an anniversary issue. He's dressed similar to like how he was dressed on number 1 with the Todd McFarlane art.
Right.
But it wasn't the number 1. It was some anniversary issue. I don't know if it was issue 100 or something like that. So I hung on to that one. It was ones that whatever I read a lot of as a kid, because there were ones that I then got later on as an adult. But all these ones that I got as a kid, either as gifts or I picked them up at a store or something, I ended up hanging on to. And then a couple of the other ones that I hung on to were the Dark book. That was like a villain book.
Gotcha.
And it wasn't a technical issue of Wizard, but Wizard put it out. And then also the X-Men anniversary issue, and that again wasn't a technical issue of Wizard, but Wizard put it out. So I might. Oh yeah, and the other issues that I hung on to were the 2 covers that they put out for the issue that Alterna actually was mentioned. So I was like, I gotta hang on to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, at one point in time, I had like 1 to 30. and then I had a bunch scattered throughout the rest up until like issue 100. I ended up selling all of them when I moved years ago. But so here we got the hot top 10 comics of August 2003. So number 1 is Superman Red Sun. Number 2 is Ultimate Spider-Man number 33. Number 3 is Batman number 612. This is the Jim Lee run. Number 4 was Batman 608. Number 5 is Ultimate X-Men number 7. 6 is Why the Last Man number 1.
I wish I held on to that. I had that whole series in floppies.
Yeah. 7 is Amazing Spider-Man number 50. That's funny. I just sold mine like 3 months ago.
Oh, yeah. The writer, J. Michael Straczynski. I read that run. I liked it.
Yeah, it was a good run. Number 8, Smallville, One Shot. Number 9. I don't remember this series at all. Hero, Hero, number 1.
No
by
clue.
Will Pfeiffer and Kano. Number 10 was Flash number 197. So those were Wizard's top 10 comics in August 2003. And then this other thing here was interesting to me. Top 10 creators. This is definitely going to be different than a lot of what's going on today.
Yeah.
So the writers. All right, so top writers here. We got Brian Michael Bendis at number 1. Number 2, we got Jeff Loeb. Number 3, we got Jeff Johns. Number 4, we got J. Michael Straczynski. Number 5, we've got Mark Waid. Number 6, Mark Miller. Number 7, Grant Morrison. Number 8, Greg Rucka. Number 9, Brian K. Vaughan. And number 10, Judd Winnick. And for top artists, number 1, Jim Lee. Number 2, Michael Turner. It was 21 years ago. Number 3, Brian Hitch. Number 4, Humberto Ramos. Number 5, Lynil Yu. Number 6, Pat Lee. Number 7, David Finch. Number 8, Mike Wieringo. Number 9, Tony Daniel. And number 10, Greg Land. And those were your top 10 writers and artists in August 2003, according to Wizard Magazine.
Yeah, the Mark Waid Wieringo Fantastic Four. I remember collecting it at that time. That was a good comic. Just solid book. No earth-shattering events. It's just them doing stuff.
Wieringo's storytelling was always great. Very solid stuff, and expressive. It's crazy that you got Michael Turner and Wieringo on there, and they're both no longer with us.
Yeah,
man. But yeah, those are the top 10 according to Wizard from 21 years ago.
I remember ranting at my buddy at the shop about Jeff Loeb just being upset about how he ruined Heroes, and my friend, you know how it is. You're young and a comic fan, and he ruined everything. And it turned out, my buddy pointed out, well, at the time that things took a downturn, that was when Jeff Loeb's son had died. So I was like, oh, okay. So maybe he was going through some stuff and kind of lost control of the creative process, and made me realize we can't just kind of, I don't know, spit venom at things thinking, people ruin things because they're fools. And maybe they're going through something and it's just kind of, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. All this stuff is tough when it comes to that level. Once you get away from that kind of singular vision that you can have as an indie creator and you start getting into the corporate bureaucracy part of creation. Even things like this with the movies and the shows, and especially with the comics, always like there's more than enough blame to go around when things get weird, but then you never also know about a ton of different things that are going on behind the scenes. I mean, you could say that for everybody and everything. I think that's why it makes me sad to see when people are kind of still in the mindset, I guess, of getting hung up on this point of dogpiling on whoever. I don't even care what it is anymore. I'm done. I'm over it.
Right. Well, especially with comic books, like I think everybody universally hates Batman and Robin, but I think Joel Schumacher gets so much blame, and then I have to turn around and tell people, like, have you seen Falling Down? Like, don't say this guy can't direct a film. This guy did Lost Boys. Like, don't sit here and tell me that he's a bad director.
Well, I dug the first Flatliners. I liked Lost Boys.
Yeah.
He's got a bunch of other great films, and again, it's also one of the, I don't know who's in there, who's making certain things, who's polishing the turds,
right?
It's like it's tough when it comes to this sort of thing there, especially once you get anyone involved that has any kind of decision making, and they have almost no emotion or sentimentality for the subject matter, the character, whatever it may be, and they're just viewing it completely as a pay pig product, whatever it may be,
right.
And they don't care. You're gonna get some weird things being made out of that.
Yeah, it definitely crushes creativity, and you've seen it through films throughout the years, like what was it, Alien 3? Everybody reviled that film, and it was like, it's directed by Fincher. Like, I'm pretty sure if they let him do his thing, it could have turned out to be a solid film. Or the original Dune by David Lynch. It's like, David Lynch knows his stuff. It's just, he had very kind of boorish producers telling him what to do, to the point where he wants his name pulled off of it, and he doesn't like talking about Dune in general.
Totally.
As like an IP or universe or anything. People always ask him, like, oh, have you read the new book? Have you watched the new movie? He's like, it's so painful. The process was so painful for me. I don't even like talking about it. So
yeah, man, that even rings true for me with my experience with making film. I could care less to do it again in that capacity. I'd much rather stick to making comics. And it's not like comics are a painless process, but I definitely derive more joy out of it. You're the one who feels like, hey, you want to get a root canal like 3 times a day for 3 weeks? Come and make a film.
Right. But at least you put your neck out there and you learned it firsthand. So that's the thing. Gave it a shot.
I definitely don't have any regrets to go like, oh, I coulda, shoulda, woulda. It's like, all right, I did, and now let's do something else.
That's why I don't pile on John Carpenter for not making films anymore. It seems like that's part of his past now. He did it. Now he has a band. He likes just sitting at home watching basketball or whatever and collecting a check. That's what he says anytime they're like, we're going to do another Halloween movie. He just kind of says, I reach out, they give me a check, and then I go back to watching basketball. And that's that. So
yeah, I don't even blame him. It's like, you know what? Why don't whoever is out there that's like, oh, why don't you go do it? Why don't you go be the next John Carpenter or, the next you in that capacity? We need more people like that are more like inspired by the previous people who've come along, and then they want to pick up the torch and be like, hey, I want to, join the pantheon of my whatever cinematic heroes, your literary heroes, your comic book heroes, whatever it is. Instead of being like, well, why don't they go out there and entertain me?
Right.
Haven't they done enough?
It's crazy because I think people need to feel like they've been anointed by someone from upon high. And I showed it to Geronimo a while ago, but anybody here who's familiar with 40K, Warhammer 40K knows of, there was a series, one animator, lone guy, made called Astartes. And it was so good, they hired him for their animation division when they launched like their own, I forget what it is. It's a subscription-based thing that they do.
Wow.
But he just did it by himself. It was so amazing. And it's like, anything's possible. You just need to...
we got a tremendous amount of talented, hardworking people out there. It's just, we're in a situation that's constantly being pushed, I think, more towards... Which is so weird, but it's being pushed more towards a weird centralization and conglomeration. But meanwhile, though, we have more tools than ever before
Right.
to decentralize, be independently creative, pursue the things we want to pursue. We just have to take the initiative and go out there. But I think that's why the corporate side of it is working so damn hard to inundate everything. Even the whole, I saw it firsthand with the comic shop and the comic business and the industry. It's like they're flooding the market with all kinds of various things because they don't want something else being on the shelf. And if they got deep enough pockets, they'll do that. They'll flood the market. They'll eat up shelf space. Without strong arming, they'll strong arm. There's all these different various techniques within business, and this has been going on for such a long time with everything. That of course they're going to do that.
Yeah.
They want to have their market share.
Especially in film, you can just option something and then shelve it.
Yeah.
That's that. And just let it sit on the shelf for
they're not going to
12 years.
Exactly. They're not going to run it like a charity and be like, well, shouldn't we be charitable to all the creative up-and-comers? A lot of the time, they'll even, and I'm not going to name names, but I've seen them buy out creators and sign them to exclusive contracts when they're up-and-coming indie talent. And then that's it. That's it. You're ours now.
Well, not even just the little guys. Wasn't that the whole claim that Liefeld had was like, I can't do any Youngblood or anything like that because he signed some kind of movie deal, and it's locked in legal loopholes and litigation to where he can't do anything with it.
Well, hell, that's even what happened with Marvel with Fantastic Four and X-Men. Once they signed those film rights and all kinds of various things, they started getting weird with the comics and terminology and certain characters, and they could use and couldn't use and whatever it might have been. So it started really affecting what was being done. So it's interesting. Nothing, if there is a hell, I'm sure it's bureaucracy to the gills.
Right.
Because that's what we fashion on this earth. Any form of bureaucracy. And the worse it gets, the more hellish it gets. So, it's interesting the way that things can play out. A direct pathway, which I think so many people are pursuing now. And I'd like to see that continue to grow. And hopefully the people that are supporting of it, they are not necessarily patient with the process, but keen as to, this is what people are up against. They're learning. All right, let's see. Okay, do you keep repeating the same mistake over and over? Because then it's like, all right, I'm not going to support. But there's a lot of people out there that they're in the thick of it. They're making their own path. They're learning from mistakes. And I'm excited to see where a lot of people are going to be in 5 or 10 years, because I think a lot of creators are going to be in a really great place. And it's going to be something special because there's that direct pathway between the people who are creating and the people who are taking part in helping that creation come to life and enjoying, hopefully, what is being created. But
especially with projects like Adam Miller, just drawing other people's characters and making a card set out of it. That's just great. Like, just using your creativity to
totally
kind of help spread the message and almost market for all these other creatives and work together.
Yeah, just fun stuff like that. And he's been great in terms of, like, I pressed him probably really annoying with some questions just to make sure, because it just was such a ridiculous offer of him being like, look, you could do anything you want with the art other than make a trading card. I'm like, there's got to be a catch to this.
Right.
So I'm like, asking him all these things: shirt, blanket, poster, cover, all these. I'm going down the line. I'm like, all of this is okay. He's like, yeah. Anything but a trading card. I was like, okay. Absolutely. Yeah, go for it. I'm excited to be a part of the set and the fact that you even asked. And then he turns out a fantastic piece, not just for King Cryptid, but then when everybody voted for Chiron Morvel from Blood Realm, that was fantastic too. So I'm excited we got these towels and shirts with those amazing pieces on them, and hopefully people get those and enjoy those. But yeah, it's a great project. What he's doing is so cool. I hope he really continues to build on it. But I'm going to be wrapping up the show here, so I'm going to have to bid you adieu, Paul.
Alrighty.
But I appreciate you being on, man.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me, Pete. Take it easy.
No problem. Have a good night. All right. So before I go, we got a couple people in the chat here. Nicholas says, what did you think of the Phantom and the Shadow movies? I liked them. I mean, if I was at that point in time in 2003 making a top 50, they would have been in there. Probably between 40 to 30 in that rating. But yeah, I liked them. Let's see. We got Comics for Life says the film companies have a problem with recasting because they think the actors are the only reason people watch the films, which is strange because, you know, it's interesting. I've seen a lot of people comment about things like, you know, movie stars and this and that and whatever, and you can't be a movie star now because the actors are taking a backseat to the character and whatever. But meanwhile, I don't see them going out and just hiring pretty much nobodies anymore and doing an audition process. So many films nowadays don't do auditions anymore, which I think is such a miss. You know, films and shows. Do an audition. That's hype, too. That's good marketing hype. Have people come in to, you know, audition to be Superman or whoever. I can't imagine. There's so many amazing films out there that pretty much did that process. And I can't imagine what it'd be like if it just became this constant. It's only this person we use. Till they're too old or whatever. They don't fit the look or the style or something of the character. See, Don wants a short Wolverine. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not going to argue that. It'd be cool to see comic accurate completely. And again, that's an audition. Have auditions for this stuff. Get people in there that could actually truly manifest that character. Comics for Life says, would you prefer a King Cryptid live action film or an animated film? Honestly, when it comes to anything comic related, I go animated first. That's just... Live action's cool and all, and some of the stuff looks great. I think, not just for comics, but I think a lot of things nowadays, they're starting to rely far too much on computer graphics. That's been going the trend for a long time. But I'd like to see an animated for King Cryptid. That'd be fun. Would I like to be involved? Not necessarily. I'd like to have, you know, here's the comics. Here's the source material. Here are the stories. I'd like to get some kind of consult involved on certain things. But that's it. That's it. You know, and as long as you're staying, you know, kind of write something out, you know, you're staying true to the source material, and I get approval when it comes to the animation, I get approval on two things. The look of King Cryptid and the voice actor for King Cryptid. That's it. Everything else, you guys go to town. Go to town. Let's see. Metatron says Image felt dead by 98. Ooh. A lot of comics felt dead by that point in time. 2003 is actually, it's interesting because it seems like comics were kind of, you know, I was starting to get into comics again at that point, 2003. It felt like they were getting good again. They were kind of out of the dark days of like 95, 96 to 2000, 2001. Let's see. I'm not aware if there's more than one Flatline. I know they remade it, right? They remade it. But I don't know if there was like a sequel to that Schumacher one. Oh, I love Darkman. Darkman's good stuff. Let's see here. Rachel says, speaking of comic adaptations, Popeye wasn't on that list. Oh, yeah, the Robin Williams movie, right? That's interesting. Let's see. Comics is looking up audition tapes of actors who could have played different roles is always interesting to find out on YouTube. Yeah, it's like a glimpse into an alternate universe. And Sinopa, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm sorry. I didn't even want to go 2 hours. We went 2 hours. But I'm going to be clocking out right about now. So thank you so much, though. I mean, hey, visit on the 31st. On the 31st is open mic. So we're going to have an open mic night on the 31st. If anybody wants to come in, promote their comic book related project for 5 minutes, that show is going to start. I'm going to start that at 9 o'clock Eastern on Friday the 31st. So come on in at that point and show us your wares. But that's it. That's it. We got a lot of talk tonight about comic movies, some about shows. I should do a whole separate show for animated shows. I might do that because I think that in and of itself needs an hour or two of a discussion. This was more comic movie centric, especially with the top 50 list. It got us in that mindset. But thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for popping in if you did. Appreciate it. And Cole, at least there's a replay. You can watch the replay. All right. Everybody, take it easy. No problem, man. No problem, Sam. I believe this is Sam who's running the account. No problem. Hope to see you on the 31st. But I'll be back again tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, with Susan Eisenberg, the voice of Wonder Woman from the Justice League animated series and Justice League Unlimited. She'll be on here. We'll be having a chat about her involvement and experience on that show. And yeah, it should be a fun one. All right. See you guys then. All the best. Until then, everybody have a wonderful night and an even better tomorrow. I'll see you guys hopefully tomorrow. If not, I'll see you soon. Take it easy.